Thanks a lot for James and for Aaron for you guys bringing me out here and letting me speak with you. So this is an honor for me to be amongst other Green Berets. Now, James, in his infinite wisdom, he and I served together in Charlie Company, 4th Battalion, 1st Special Forces Group, the most decorated company in 1st Special Forces Group. I was fortunate to be a member of it. 2013 in Afghanistan, August 28th, the enemy set off a 5,000-pound IED on our perimeter. They attacked us from the other side of the perimeter with about 30 guys. I was over there. They hit us with RPGs, PKMs, and AK-47s. From that side, we'd been getting we'd been getting IDF that whole week. So we thought it was indirect fire hitting us. So we were slow to react. Fortunately for us, there were over 3,000 people on the FOB, and the Army, being the Army that it is, changed my commanders out midstream in combat. It's always good, right? Because the Army wants 2 commanders to have combat time. Well, of course, I'm gonna continue to be the company sergeant major. So what I did was I dictated that all the officers had to come to the FOB, because that would be the only opportunity for not only say goodbye to that commander, but for that new commander to provide his vision, his intent, and his scope. What did he want to do with that organization? We're in combat. This is it. This is the Super Bowl for us, right? The worst thing about combat is not being in it. You know, when you're there, you want to be home in America. And when you're here, I want to be back there. You know, so all I needed was like a week to have a couple of beers and then go back in theater. You know, so I really am proud of my service. I'm really happy to be here, but James literally gave me 0 guidance on what to speak about. I'm like, what do you want me to talk about? He's like, just be you, Tony, because we work together. So he knows I'm a semi-efficient public speaker. So I just thought about it and I said, you know what? I'm just gonna talk about the regiment, Green Berets, talking to Green Berets about Green Berets. Because I have this theory, the quiet professional. We all know this, right? We're all quiet professionals, right? Well, I think that's an archaic approach to our regiment in the 21st century. It's 2024. It's not 1970 anymore. We need to stop being the quiet professional and become the humble professional. And I think that we can show humility, but we need to be our own best advertisers. We are our own best recruiters. This opportunity that Johan has to possibly go to the Jonathan Club, I would recommend you wear your Class A uniform and you show up long and tall, and that sets impressions. I can remember the first paratrooper I ever saw in my life at 10 years old, and I thought, that's what I'm gonna do with my life. And that's what I did. People find their calling in all different ways. Medicine, they wanna be a lawyer. I mean, heck, if you're a basket weaver, then just be the best basket weaver ever, you know? And I was a soldier, and I'm proud of it, and so I've made it part of my life's work to elevate other Green Berets. Green Berets elevating Green Berets. So that's what we're gonna be talking about today. Again, I spent 25 years in and around First Group. I never served in another group, and I was a commo guy. I hated that job. Anybody commo guys here? Thank you very much. It's the most thankless job in Special Forces on an ODA. I would submit that, you know, a Bravo, everybody wants to shoot guns. A Charlie, you can build bridges, and a medic, you can save people, so your rapport is built in instantly. A commo guy, nobody wants to talk to a commo guy. You know, the only time people talk to a commo guy is when you're not making commo. Like, hey, did you try the solar flux flare? And I'm like, you know, you're not a commo guy, you're a Bravo, get out of me. I just can't get it. So, you know, what do Green Berets look like? You know, my pastor in Ohio, his wife, I've known her 25 years, and she didn't know I was a Green Beret. She just knew I was Special Forces. She had not equated that in her head because we're doing a poor job of advertising for ourselves. She literally came to me just recently and said, Tony, you're a Green Beret? You don't look like a Green Beret. And I was like, well, what does a Green Beret look like? Well, I think you mentioned it, Aaron. The new generation of Green Berets looks different than other generations. Well, I came up with this theory, and I would ask that you guys like pipe in here. I think the regiment, you can boil it down by time periods. 1952, we started. 1961, JFK gave us the beret, signed it in 1962. We then grew to go into Vietnam. We were very, very prominent there. We're very proud of our heritage. I'm sure many of you served there. And then as we move forward, we get to the end of the Vietnam War, and we do what America always does. In 1974, we started drawing forces down and deactivating groups. My group deactivated in 1974. Well, we saw that wasn't very smart. So we went ahead and in 1984, reactivated First Group and other groups, and we grew back again. So we're looking at, now we're in the Reagan years. So we're in South America doing things that we're not supposed to be, being in places that we're not supposed to be, doing God's work all over the world, right? So now then we get to 1990, well, we do 89, we do Just Cause. You can say it with the different inflection and it's much better. It's just cause we can. We just invade countries just cause we can, because we're America. We're arguably the greatest country the face of the earth has ever known, with the most powerful military the earth has ever seen. So then we go to Desert Storm, we grow, the Army grows to 1 million people. SF, we benefit from that. Then what happens after Desert Storm? Desert Shield, Desert Storm, we draw down again. We cut down from 1 million to like 500,000. So we go through Desert Shield, Desert Storm, 1990, then we go into peacetime. And then what happens on 2001? We all know 9/11. Then we go into the GWOT, or the Global War on Terror, which wasn't always called that, by the way. It used to be called OCO, Overseas Contingency Operations. It was called other things. And eventually it became the Global War on Terror. And it's not over. Contrary to popular belief, the GWOT is not over. We're just fighting it differently. When you look at the 4 elements of national power dime, diplomacy, information, military, and economics, we're always in a constant state of war. But the American public thinks the military is the only way we wage war. We don't. We wage it through diplomacy, through information, and through economics. We do economic sanctions all the time. We have economic sanctions on Iran right now. That's an act of war, but we can beat them up. So basically, we're the toughest guy in the room. But really, we have to ask ourselves, what do Green Berets look like, right? Well, they used to look a lot like this, and some of you probably look like that. They used to be advertised as this. This might even be you. In fact, I think I have a picture of you in here. That might have been your ODA. You could have been this guy. Maybe even, isn't this John Stryker Meyer, I think? No. Okay, that's not him either then. No. So this is what Green Berets used to look like, and this is what America thought of. And you guys had guys like this, Bob Howard, Colonel retired Bob Howard, unfortunately now deceased, arguably one of the greatest warriors to serve in the Vietnam era. Recommended for the medal 3 times, received it on the 3rd time. I mean, I had the opportunity to meet him when he was a Veterans Affairs representative in Korea and speak with him, and he's the most humble. I didn't even know he was a Medal of Honor recipient at the time. My buddy took me over there, and after we left, he said, you know, that guy's got the medal. I was like, you never would have known it by speaking with him. But Green Berets don't look like that anymore, unfortunately. It's our generation. It's beards and crazy equipment and getting outfitted. And one Green Beret right now costs $1 million to train. You meet an active duty Green Beret, your tax dollars paid $1 million to train that guy. But we're all over the place. We came out of what was known as the GWOT when we finally left Afghanistan, America's longest war of 20 years. We came out of there the most battle-hardened, best military the world had ever seen. More combat experience across our formations that unparalleled. We can beat anybody in a fight. It's what do we do after the fight? What do we do on, I can kick your butt on Monday, but what do I do on Tuesday? America's still trying to figure that out in nation building. It's not my job. My job's to obey the Constitution of the United States, to protect my country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and follow the orders of those appointed above me. That's my job. Well, you guys had Bob Howard. We got ours too. We got several guys like this. Sergeant Major Williams is still on active duty, 3rd group. So this is what Green Berets look like. They look like me and you. You can't tell from the outside, can you? Can you even, thank you. Here's your $5. I mean, don't they? Can you tell from the outside what a Green Beret looks like? Because it's not the outside that gets us across the finish line. It's what's inside. It's your heart, your head, and your will to survive, and your unwillingness to quit. I had to move a refrigerator with my wife, who's a retired command sergeant major, brigade. She outranks me, and she reminds me quite frequently. I just tell her I can run faster scared than she can mad. And so far, I still can. So when I can't get away from her anymore, I'll probably have to listen to her, okay? One of my favorite things, I like to put my wife in her place every now and then, and I have to run immediately afterward. I said, you know, what's the hardest part about going TDY? You guys remember what TDY was? Temporary duty? She said, I don't know, you know, you're gone from the family. I said, no, try not to smile when I kiss you goodbye. Yeah, that didn't go over real well. I barely survived that one. You too can use that joke to your detriment. Yeah. Well, I don't know what a Green Beret looks like on the outside, but I know what he looks like on the inside because I am one. someone committed to the 4Cs. I grew up in the 80s Army, and they had all these great tools that you could learn and apply on how to be a better leader, how to do these things. So we've gone away from that. It seems as the culture changes, the military changes. And the military has always been a harbinger of change, always bringing change. So inside of Green Beret, you look at 4 things: courage, candor, commitment, competence. Those are just simple tenets of which you can operate. But then you look at leadership traits: bearing, courage, decisiveness, dependability, endurance, enthusiasm, initiative, intelligence, judgment, justice, knowledge, and tact. And honor, that's my favorite one. I do them in order, and I missed honor. Tact, that's my least favorite one. I have no tact. These are the kinds of things that helped us develop who we are as an individual and apply it to being a Green Beret. These are the things I was taught. Be, know, do. You guys ever heard that one? Be professional and ethical. Know yourself, your job, your unit. Do provide motivation, direction, and implementation. Well, unfortunately, the new version of that is be a jackwagon, know you're a jackwagon, and do nothing about it. That seems like what the new Army is, and I think we're losing a lot of that. Let's talk about the regiment and the history. We each have an individual responsibility. When we walk across that stage, you get 3 things. You get a new MOS, 18 series. You get a Green Beret permanent award, the only permanent presidential award headgear in the Army. They even changed the Rangers a few years ago, if we all remember, from black to tan. They can't do that to us. And you get a tab. Well, a lot of you guys were probably flash qualified, I would assume, right? Did you serve when there were candy stripers? And yeah. Did you get flash qualified when you were tabbed? Did you guys have to go back and get your Special Forces tab, or have any of you done that? No. You've never, like, grandfathered back? Yeah, that's what we all. I mean, you guys are grandfathered.
Some people have.
Some people.
Was Gary, didn't you send that out?
What's that?
The paperwork for getting a long tab?
I don't think so.
It's a fairly simple process. Yeah. If anybody after this was interested, I could definitely get them involved in that.
Just mail in your completion certificate, and they mail you the orders.
Yeah, and then you're.
I had to do that in 88, 89.
Yeah.
A lot of us don't have a long tab, or at least not the qualification for it.
Well, I would contend that you don't need it because you're still a Green Beret. Oh, yeah. When I was a company sergeant major, I had like Dress Down Friday, right? Everybody put in a little bit of money and they get to wear civilian clothes, okay, every Friday. Well, you know, all that money went to beer, just so you know. Like 100%, I did not let that money be spent on anything but beer. But I got this one guy, Matt Prinsinski, still serving. He's a team sergeant right now. Great guy, great young guy, always in his uniform. I'm like, Matt, you know, you can wear civilian clothes. It's Friday. I'll pay the $1 or $2 for you. He said, no, you don't understand, Sergeant Major. This is my Superman suit. And I feel like Superman when I'm wearing this. I've displayed my accomplishments. I said, wow, that's interesting, you know, because I'm looking like this on a Friday, and I feel bad. I'm walking around all day. I'm like, wow, that's a good one. I went back to him and I said, you're wrong, Matt. That's not your Superman suit. Because Superman has his suit on all the time, and he goes in the phone booth and takes off his costume to put his suit on. I said, so you're always Superman. You don't need that. In fact, the tab's not even for you. You don't have one, like you said, or not everyone here, but you're all Green Berets, right? The tab is for everyone at the PX to know you're a superior human being. That's the only reason you have a tab. Because the tab doesn't make you. You don't have to live up. Your actions speak for themselves. So I just have a tab so that when I go to the PX, everybody knows to get out of my way, you know. Unfortunately, America has an informal policy that they've been following for the last 200 years. Before every major conflict, we build up the military, we pour a bunch of money, authorities, resources, people, and then we go out and we fight that conflict. Well, recently it was the GWAT, but before, it's always been that way. I was fortunate enough to be in the 82nd Airborne Division and serve in Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I saw the Army in 1990 just grow to 1 million people standing active duty. Within 2 months of our return, the CSM would walk across from his office to our company with a stack of pink papers in his hand, talk to the first sergeant for about 30 minutes. Door would open up. He'd go back to his office. The first sergeant would come out and start calling names. You had an Article 15. You had any sort of trouble, you were QMP'd. You had met the criteria and you had triggered a qualitative management program. You were being asked to leave or told to leave the Army in 90 days. That's the way the Army is. And that's what they're doing right now. Okay, before the GWAT, we expanded. The entire SOF enterprise expanded. The Rangers grew a 4th Company, Delta Company. The unit built a new squadron, D Squadron. Special Forces added 4th battalions to every group and grew them with an intent to turn them into JEDCos later, or Jedburgh companies doing that sort of work, but 4 battalions. So now, during the GWAT, you understand the picture I'm painting here, the word picture, we're building up, we're fat, we're happy, resources, money everywhere, authorities to go do things, kill bad guys all over the world. Well, what happens after the GWAT? We start shrinking again. I don't know why. I can talk about this for an hour, just about this. After Vietnam, you guys know it, I mentioned it earlier, we contracted our military and we shut down a bunch of groups, 1974. Took us 10 years as a country to figure out we wanted more. 1984, reactivated first group over in Okinawa at Camp Buckner. So the point I'm trying to make is when you talk about 3,000 people being missing, we did it to ourselves. We shot our own foot in that we grew, and now we have to fill those formations. I grew up in Special Forces with 7 or 8 guys on an ODA, on a 12-man ODA. That was pretty normal. If you were doing something really, really like important, you could plus up your team and you'd go out the door with like 12 guys. I went downrange as a team sergeant with 13 dudes on my ODA. So you can, plus up based on that requirement, based on having to go to war. Well, now we're back to those 7, 8 guys on an ODA, and we're having a hard time manning those ODAs. And so we are the ones to help solve that problem. We're a supporting effort to this recruiting crisis that we're experiencing in America. We as Green Berets are our own best advertisers. The GWAT generation has 2 sides to it, and we're not reaching either side. The easy side are the veterans, because they speak our language. The guy that was in the Army for 4 to 6 years and did 2 tours in Iraq, I can talk to that guy. It's the other side of the GWAT generation that we're hurting, and they're gonna hurt us generationally. So my daughter's 30 years old, she's got pink hair, we're not allowed, she has dictated I am not able to speak about politics in my own home because it upsets her. And I love her dearly, but I just can't get there. I just can't figure out how to reach her. That's the other side of the GWAT generation that we're not reaching. And they're raising children. My 9-year-old granddaughter turned to me and said, "Poppy, boys can wear dresses too. Isn't that great?" My heart just sunk. But it's not my daughter, it's my granddaughter. I can be a great grandfather, I'm not a parent. But that's the future of America right there. Well, not everywhere. There are still good Americans. Right now, I always believed in OJT, on-the-job training. Right now, I have an OJT kid. I'm a retired sergeant major, and this kid is in college. He's got his bachelor's degree already. He plays baseball, so he redshirted freshman, so he's staying a 5th year. He's getting his master's degree, and he wants to join Special Forces. So I've taught him to read a map. I've taken him outside. I got him a rucksack. He's rucking. I've been teaching him about, things that we take for granted, taking care of your feet, understanding, running downhill, walking. I mean, just these things. He's leaving later this year to start the program. One of my friend's sons was in the program, 18 X-ray program, so I connected him with him. So he's getting real-time intel straight from the Q course. That's the best thing. Just an old guy. There's almost nothing I can tell him that's still relevant. Because whatever Q course you went to is not the Q course I went to. And it's not the Q course they're doing today. SEER School is now part of the Q course. When I went, it was just a course you went to. I went because all the officers had been, and I thought, well, they're not going to know something I don't. SEER School. I never worked so darn hard to learn so little. So we have expanded 4th battalions all across the soft enterprise, like I said, and now we're trying to manage that. We still have those authorities. We still have a lot of funding in our community. SOCOM has become Special Operations Command down in Florida, 4-star command. It's not a geographic component command. It doesn't own any part of the world, but it owns the entire world. It's tasked with synchronizing special operations throughout the world in support of national strategy. So we go everywhere. But just like many headquarters at that level, they forget what it was like to be down on the ground, and they make decisions that aren't always based on that guy on the ground. So we'll see what happens. We got a first group guy out there. Sergeant Major Shane Shorter is the SEL. But the regiment, when I first joined, I didn't even know it was a regiment. I didn't even realize that and where our lineage came from. But I believe that we need to worry about, we need to do things today that are going to have effects tomorrow. And that's who we are as Green Berets. We think about the future. Well, the future is my granddaughter thinking that boys can wear dresses. And I'm not against that by any means. I just think that we need to have the other side of that somebody remembers the Constitution and all of these things. I don't know. But I do know that I can baffle you with a whole bunch of facts. So an SF battalion is 432 people from top to bottom, the commander down to the lowest private. Now all your 432 guys, okay? Right now they're looking at about 350, 380, somewhere like that. It's very down. We went in the mid-90s, we had ghost teams. Anybody familiar with ghost teams? So basically you don't got enough people. You got 6 ODAs in a company. You don't have enough guys to get 12. You take one team and you take everyone off of it and you put all their equipment in lockers and you lock it up and you manage them on the board, meaning they're still assigned to the unit, but nobody's on that team. So we did that in like 98, 99 in 3rd Battalion and 1st Group at Lewis. We had ghost teams. And then the war sort of kicked off and we were able to fill our formations and our ranks and fill our teams. Well, at that point, we didn't need them. Well, ghost teams have come back now. There are ghost teams in 1st Group right now. And to me, you know, when I see things like this, I don't believe in coincidences. I used to be trained with, those were called indicators. You know, so to me, that's an indicator of what's going to be happening in the next 1, 3, 5 years or so, you know, with the regiment. So we have to get out and recruit. One of the facts that really applies is there's a social phenomenon in America. It's called the dynastic approach to military service. It's a big word for basically, if you are a Marine, the chances are that your family will serve in the Marines later on. You know, if your uncle was in the Navy, you tend to kind of follow that initiative. I personally know many of my fellow Green Berets that their sons went on to serve in the Ranger Battalion or into the regiment, or, you know, most of the smart ones send them to West Point and make them be officers, but, you know, they're still out there. So the point I'm trying to illustrate is that the facts are all right there. I'm sure Johan can get up here and talk about the recruiting crisis in America, missing our recruiting in the Army by over 30,000 people. And I have this theory I've been working on, and I would ask that you help me with it, is because you are an influencer in your own family. That's what I'm trying to say. Somebody recently told me that their child was about to join the military, and they said, no, not now. Now is not the time. Unfortunately, it's always time. It's important for us to be those good positive role models for those people around us, because we're losing that dynastic service. We're having individuals tell their family members, don't go in the service. Don't serve anymore. We cut those ties, we're really going to be hurting. We did it to the African-American community in Vietnam. We drafted them in extraordinarily large numbers, put them in combat mission or combat jobs or MOSs, military occupational specialties, and then, you know, basically they were put into the meat grinder. Well, the problem with that is, as a result of that, you got somebody's uncle right now, somebody's grandfather that still tells his family, don't go in the service. They're not going to treat you well. Well, you know, we don't act that way anymore, right? As a culture, as a service. But that lingering thought of like, don't go in the military, you'll get screwed, still exists, unfortunately. So we got to try to break that paradigm. We got to try to encourage the right family members to go on the right service. And I'm not saying try to make everyone a Green Beret, but service is so beneficial to young Americans. It teaches them discipline. It teaches them how to plan out their day. Many of them have never left their home. They never even had to pay for a cell phone bill or any of these other things. It just teaches and it encourages people to be out in the world. And it's a good thing. It's a good way to start your life. And I'm a big believer in it, and I try to recruit everywhere I go. I try to keep that in mind because I just think it's important. This was my company in 2018. James is somewhere in here. James, where are you at, buddy?
Top left, 360.
He's up here somewhere.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, oh, there he is. I believe in, I had this kid come to me, a first sergeant, and he said, and I was a battalion sergeant, he came to me and said, hey, I want to fire this guy. He's a dumbass. I said, you can't fire him. I was like, no, I want to fire him. I'm going to move him. So Kenny Kiesler, great American, great sergeant, went on to be a great CSM. And he's like, I'm going to fire him, Sergeant Major. And I'm like, you can't fire him. He's like, so I had to sit him down and say, why do you want to fire him? He says, because he's not performing. Well, what is he not performing? He's not performing to my level. I'm like, you're an A+ guy. Your band of excellence is so high that the rest of America, you're going to have to go around firing everyone, Kenny. You can't, nobody operates at your level. So what you need to do as a leader is understand people and what their capabilities are and employ them accordingly. Don't be mad at a C-level guy for a C-level performance when that's the best he can do. Find him a C-level job. And he went, wow, I never looked at it that way. He didn't fire the kid. He just gave him less responsibility, employed him in accordance with what he was able to do, and the kid went on to be successful, and serve in the military, and I'm pretty sure he still is. So the point is, we need to understand our operational environment. We're Green Berets. We're not Green Berets because we're wearing a suit or someone gave me a tab. We're Green Berets because it's in our DNA. And I make every situation I'm in better. I don't care what it is. And that's part of being a Green Beret. I don't care what it is. There's always something good. It's going to end. If nothing else, this horrible time is going to end at some point. It can't go on forever. If that's all the good I can find, that's all I need to get it to the next one. But I believe in the Special Forces Association, and I can't thank Chapter 78 enough for bringing me out here. I've been lucky to be a member of multiple chapters, 16 out in Washington, 2 in Okinawa, 13 in Korea, 35 and 45 out in Ohio. And one of the things I want to talk about the Special Forces Association is we are a supporting effort to recruiting, to serving, we are Green Berets. We matter just as much as that guy that's holding that weapon right now. And we can do that by setting that example. Well, how do we advertise the SFA? Well, here's how I do it. I've joined every organization that I could possibly join, that I think of. I'm a member, not only life member of the Special Forces Association, I'm a life member of the VFW, a life member of the American Legion, I'm a life member of the AUSA, I'm a member of the National Infantry Association at Fort Benning because I grew up an infantryman. I try to give back. I give $11 a month. If you've ever seen the commercial to Tunnel to Towers, it's $11. I try to give, as many charities as I can. I volunteer in my community. I do whatever I can to try to, I'm only one person, but I can do what one person can do. I try to talk myself into success instead of talking myself into failure. That's why I'm a Green Beret and those 60 dudes that didn't make it aren't here anymore, because they talked themselves into failure. So I just think that we all have a place or a part to play in the future of our regiment, because that's what all of this conversation is. It's the current and what is the future of the regiment of Special Forces. I mean, there's many things that you can do as an association. In Korea, we adopted the Special Forces Association award that they give out, a medal. You give it out to JRTC and ROTC kids. If you give it to a high school kid, he can take it and wear it when he goes to college if he continues in the program. It's free. It costs like $12 for the medal. And you give them a coin and a certificate. But I started engaging all those high schools because that's the future of America. And they're seeing Green Berets. And we're giving them, what was it, Napoleon said, give me a bolt of cloth and I'll take the world. It's people want to be recognized, right? So as an SFA chapter, you can do things like that. What I would recommend, another way, is to start networking. You need associates, associations, and networks to be successful. This organization specifically allows associates. You don't have to just get Green Berets to be part of your chapter. When I was trying to grow 13 in Korea, I arrived there and it was defunct, the chapter. So I said, no, that's not going to happen. I'm going to start it up again. So, everyone's like, well, there's not enough Green Berets in Korea. I'm like, sure there are. Because they don't all have to be Green Berets. They just have to be believers in the cause and trying to bring people together and supporting each other. So you guys here in California, you could align yourselves with a local VFW or an American Legion, because what's happening right now across America with our organizations is they're atrophying. They're dying. They're dying out with the membership. How do we engage the GWAT? Well, in Chapter 35, they host a motorcycle ride. I'm a motorcyclist, but there's no one in their chapter that rides motorcycles. But they have B219 out there, and they have them come out and do a whole display, and they run this whole event with a couple hundred bikers show up, and Green Berets are running it in Ohio. No one in the chapter rides a motorcycle. But somebody said, hey, here's an idea, let's try it. It's great community outreach, so you don't have, the answer isn't always right in front of you. But as GBs, it's like, I used to tell these young cats, when you put that beret on, you become a master problem solver. There's no problem you can't solve. Not because you got the tools, it's because you won't stop until the problem's solved. So you could not allow yourself to let any obstacle get in your way. I was trying to move a refrigerator with my wife, just the two of us, downstairs, moving it, wrong dolly, get it outside, we got to take it down to the basement, we're going to use it to store, pop and things like that, right? We get it outside and she's like, we're done. Can't get it, it's just the two of us, it's crushing us. I'm like, no, there is no done. We're not done. We're done when the job is done. whatever it's going to cost. It's going to cost us money, time, emotion. It's going to hurt. You're going to yell. She's mad at me. You know, I started running. Got away again. So your psyche is such a way that, you know, you're not an average person. An average person doesn't put themselves through the things you put yourself through to accomplish what you have. So why are we going to stop that now? I hang out with some guys and I'm like, guys, this is an easy problem to solve. Why are we forgetting all the training that we've had our whole lives? And you're trying to solve it like, well, like someone that isn't trained. So the Special Forces Association is important, but we must take a deliberate approach to the longevity of this organization. If the longer we sit here, the more we atrophy. In 10 years, the association is going to start to die down. There's 20,000 members in the association, 10,000 active. If you guys don't ever go on the website or the team house, I can show you afterwards, and we can do a query, all the Green Berets in this area. You know, and so you could reach out and find that guy that maybe doesn't know that you exist. So there's a lot of ways to build the chapter, but it must be deliberately encountered. You can't just walk your way into success. You have to come up with a plan, develop a courses of action, decide on one, and then implement it. Follow up and follow through. I think the Special Forces Association by far is better than all these other associations I'm in. When I go around them, I'm like, well, that's why I'm a Green Beret, because I just can't get along with these people. I mean, they're just dumb. Like you can see solutions flying around the room and nobody can see them, and you're just like, I can't be here. These are not my tribe. That's not my tribe. These are not my people. We also have a responsibility as Americans. We're losing this. When we took civics out of high school, we started the average American right now does not understand the three branches of government. They don't understand how the government works. They don't understand how the judicial branch, the legislative branch, or the executive branch, and the balance of power. We are not a democracy. Every time I hear anybody say, we need to save the democracy, we are a constitutional republic represented by our elected officials. A democracy, the mob rules. If we were a democratic organization and I wanted your cool Hawaiian shirt, I'm just going to talk these people into taking it from you, and then I'll be wearing your Hawaiian shirt. That's a democracy. We're a constitutional republic, and we have a responsibility as Americans to not only remember that, but talking about that. I think in the 60s or the 70s, most of us are old enough to remember that, somebody made it socially incompatible to speak about sex, religion, or politics at the dinner table. Do you guys remember that? Oh, you never talk about religion at the dinner table. Well, that was an actual propaganda effort to take those things out of our communities, out of our homes, and to work on destroying the nuclear family. I personally believe that, and I have some things that I could tell you later that will help prove it, but that was a deliberate act. So now we're uncomfortable. We're in the 2024, in the 21st century, in this modern era, and we're not supposed to talk about politics. I don't care if you lean left or right or center. You're a human. I can disagree with you and still move on, right? I think it's important that we're educating those around us, whether it's your families or whether it's your communities. I live in a very small community. They all know, everyone knows what everyone else does. And I wasn't used to it. I grew up in Oxnard up north. I grew up in Lomita, like that area. I don't know if you guys know Wilmington, San Pedro, the bad part in like the 60s, 70s. I don't know what it looks like now. I haven't been there forever. It wasn't nice when I lived there. At any rate, I move out in the country and like everyone's like, hi. I'm like, why are you talking to me? Are you trying to mug me? What do you need? You know, and people are like, no, you're the new military guy that moved in. I'm like, how do you know my story? Everyone knows your story. That's small town America. Well, 3.5 years later, that's where my wife was born and raised. I love it. It's the best part of America. That's America. In my opinion, where neighbors help neighbors. Everything's changing. We mentioned it before. The only thing you can count on is change. We can't stand around and lament that the world is not the way it used to be, because it's never going to be the way it used to be. The technological genie is out of the box. We're never going to go back. So we need to embrace change, embrace social media, embrace these other ways to reach out to people. Start a motorcycle ride. You don't have to be a motorcyclist. Just organize your chapter to do something. Have a barbecue. Do spaghetti dinner like a lot of churches do. Have a spaghetti dinner where people come through. Give things away. Use that award as a way to get into different high schools and be able to talk to them. I was speaking with Johan. You know, he's the battalion commander of the recruiting out here, he said less than 5% of high schools right now are even giving the ASVAB test, which is the entrance. Did you guys take that back then? The ASVAB is the entrance, it checks your smarts. GT score, you get a general test score. You got to have a 110 to be SF or a pilot or anything. That's considered like the lowest smart guy you can be. For a while it was 100. They were talking about taking it to 90. Everybody was freaking out. But the problem was the recruiting pool was shrinking. And when you keep the criteria here, you can bring less people in. At some point, we just got to take some people for potential and train them. So we can't live in yesterday. We have to live in today, but we have to plan and prepare for tomorrow. It's very important. I think that personally, I believe that compulsory service is a good thing. Let's take a country like South Korea. They have compulsory service. Every citizen must serve in the military. They have an extreme dynastic approach to military service. If you go volunteer to do your time, you have like a 10-year window. You get to pick your service. If you wait until they tell you, they put you wherever they want, normally the Marine Corps. That's where people that don't want to go. So if you're in Korea, it's a very homogenous society, very, very little foreign influence. They literally, like if your grandfather was a Marine, you're a Marine. I mean, and I think compulsory service, it teaches young people. So the draft, were you drafted, sir?
No.
Was anyone in here drafted? You guys were Green Berets, you could have been. So we do have a draftee. You were drafted?
Oh, yes.
Last week for what? You're tall. For a basketball team?
1952.
Hey, I wasn't even alive in 1952. How many people were alive in 1952? Come on. Okay, never mind. I'll be sitting down here. That was way too many people in the room. Not the response I thought of.
But a lot of us would have been drafted if we didn't.
Volunteer to serve.
Instead of being
Yeah. What do you think about the draft?
I think we should bring it back.
Is that a general consensus? Anyone else?
Yeah.
It won't happen because of the politicians.
Yeah.
I agree. Because we have to remember that we're subordinate to our civilian leaders, the check and balance. I believe in the concept of SF 360, always being an SF guy, always trying to be positive around the people around me. I think the draft is a good thing. I think you're right, our political leaders won't embrace it. I think it needs to be repackaged, something like compulsory service or mandatory service as opposed to draft. I mean, that's what everybody wants to just, brush it off and put a new name on things these days. Pardon?
I said the kids today don't even have physical education in any of their classes.
So one of my initiatives and my goals is there's about, let's just say for argument's sake, there's, 200 schools you said?
200 schools in high schools in Los Angeles Unified School District.
Okay.
Second largest district in the country.
Second only to New York.
Correct.
Okay, so take any school in that 200 schools. Let's take 100 kids. These are all numbers I'm making up, but it's true. 83 of those kids can't even serve. They either got convictions, or they're in trouble, they're overweight, they can't run, they smoke pot, they do all these things. I mean, they do all these things that keep the youth down, that thwart you. 17 of them can serve in the military. So 10 of them are just going to go in the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines or whatever. They might have that dynastic approach to service or whatever it is. Or sometimes they rebel. My nephew went in the Marine Corps because his uncle was a Green Beret. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So now we have 7 kids, right? They got the 10 going in the regular military. We got 7 that have what it takes to be a Green Beret or a special operator. Well, who do those kids all want to be? Who has the best public relations program in America today? Which special operations organization?
Marine Corps. SEALs.
It's the SEALs. They have the best public relations program. I get asked all the time, hey, you're special, right? Are you a SEAL? Yeah, kind of like that, but only more professional.
Your IQ is higher than your bicep.
The SEALs individually are awesome guys, so super capable individuals. Organizationally, I think they have some growing still to do. Organizationally, they're infamous for some things. I worked in the SIF in Okinawa, so I was an assaulter, and I always thought the SEALs were a high school football team with guns. I'm like, that's your mentality. They're all like UT. They're younger ranking on purpose. You take a SEAL platoon, which is 14 guys, 3 officers, 11 enlisted. They have 1 E7, all right? That's your chief. You have an E6, he's your LPO, your lead petty officer. He really runs everything, an E6. And then everyone else on that platoon's an E4 or an E5 or an E3 even. Nothing wrong with that. This is just their culture. Our culture is in one SF company, we have the same leadership that an infantry battalion has. An ODA has a captain. What does an infantry company have running it? An ODA has a team sergeant, E8. Lateral promotion to first sergeant, works at an infantry company. How many platoon sergeants you got? 4 E7s. And you got 4 E6s. And you got 1 super senior E7, right? So, I mean, and then a warrant who, you know, any warrants in here? Oh, dude, you were a warrant? And I did like you, too.
Greatest rank in the service, absolutely.
It's like an officer specialist. You just like, you never know where they are. So a guy goes into a butcher shop and he sees private brains, $1.99. Officer brains, $2.99. Warrant officer brains, $29.99. Guy happens to be an NCO like me and he says, hey, butcher, what's going on with this here? You know, he goes, what are you talking about? He said, the warrant brains, why are they $29.99? He says, you know how many of those guys I got to kill to get a pound of brains? Warrant officers. I put a packet in, was accepted. 13 years in the Army, had to get an active federal service waiver because I was over 12 years. Was headed down to Rucker, back when it was Fort Rucker. Everyone's like, you got to learn how to shut up, Tony, because you're going to be a warrant now and you can't talk like that. And then I came out on the 8 list. 13 years, nobody saw it. I didn't see it. No one saw it. And so then now I got all the warrants over here saying, go be a warrant. And I got all the team sergeants over here saying, we need team sergeants. And the team sergeant I most respected, he came to me and he said, everyone's necessary on the ODA. You've got the necessary knowledge, skills, and abilities to be a warrant, but you don't have the personality or the temperament. And it hurt my feeling. I had to go back and do some introspect. But as a result of it, I stayed an NCO because it was a better fit for me. You know, now that's a boring story. I'm sure we all have a bunch of those, but
It was a better fit for me too.
yeah, and it's a better fit for, it's less knowledge, skills, and abilities, and it's more demeanor, I think, in the way, I don't know, there's two warrants, 2 kinds of warrants. There's good ones and bad ones. There's almost no mediocre ones. You know, you're either good or you're bad. I probably would have been a bad one because I can't keep my mouth shut. I'm gonna kind of close up here with just a couple quick things. First, cancer is prevalent in our regiment. We don't know why. SOCOM just issued a directive on 5 March, just 2 weeks ago, that they're initiating an official study because Green Berets die of cancer in greater numbers than the American public. Now, this room's we're probably all past that. Everyone's, you know, into their 6th decade, if you will. But there's a lot of guys, and it's just unnatural. A friend of mine, retired lieutenant colonel up at First Group, has been studying it for about 7 years. So I talk to him all the time about it. But now it's good to see that the Starfleet Command is now getting involved and they're going to initiate this. There's a letter out there. It's on social media, SF Brothers. Somebody mentioned some other websites. It's out there right now. I would ask that you go and look at it. And if you can do anything to support that initiative, I mean, you know, it's unnatural that we're dying so much of cancer. I personally think it's Camp McCall. Where did we all go? People think it's downrange, but not everybody went to, you know, 5th and 10th went to Iraq and 3rd and 7th went to Afghanistan and just rotated every 6 months. You know, I don't know if you guys know that. That's how the GWAT was employed. 6-month wars for like the first 8 years.
Tony, do you know, is it a certain type of cancer or not?
No, it's not. It's metastasizing in many different ways. One guy literally got like pancreatic cancer, died within 3 months. Like found out, flash the bang, he's gone. You know, tomorrow's never promised for us, so we must always live today to the fullest, right? And take care of our family, be good Americans. But so it's like across the board. There's, I think, 8 or 9 different kinds. I'm not super, but there were other, that's just one I had off the top of my head. Not everyone has pancreatic cancer. The other thing is an epidemic in America is men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s are committing suicide at an alarming rate. So that's something, we often talk about Awareness 22 veterans every day commit suicide for many different reasons. Also, what people aren't talking about or having discussions is in active duty, we're having a suicide epidemic. Kids are killing themselves active duty as well. But it's also occurring in our culture. So it's something I feel pretty strongly about that I try to get involved in. And, you know, that whole call me up thing, you know, I'm available 24/7. You guys have questions?
What part of the country you live in?
Pardon?
Where you live? What area?
I live in Ohio, Northeast Ohio, equidistance, right near the Pennsylvania state line. My wife is, I mentioned she's a retired brigade command sergeant major, so she basically moved us there.
Wilmington Pedro guy.
Yeah, Wilmington, Pedro, Lomita, Harbor Hills.
That's kind of where I grew up.
Yeah.
How old were you in Lomita?
8, 9, 10. I moved to Oxnard when I was 12 and grew up in Oxnard and then joined the Army from there, Port Hueneme. So it's nice to be here. I might try to go up there later today to see what it looks like. So, again, I didn't really know what I was going to speak about, so I just wanted to share with you about the regiment. I'm still connected with First Group, so if you have any questions about active duty stuff, I could answer some of those.
So, I got a question. Is the Green Beret Foundation still a necessary part of the checklist to get out? So if you're ACAPing, do you still have to go by and talk to Danny Orozco to be able to check out a group?
Okay, so are you guys familiar with the Green Beret Foundation? The problems they've been having, they've changed leadership and they're doing a lot better now. There were some problems. And so in First Group, I don't know if it's the same in other groups, you had to go by and check the rep. Well, the old rep wasn't very active. He wasn't very user-friendly. So then the group CSM retires, Danny Orozco, and goes in and takes the job. He increases the list of people that he's helping. Yeah, from like 10, 12. He had the guy before him had like 12 people that he was helping get out of the Army, figure out retirement. I think Danny has 128 individuals. He's expanded it outside a group. So he's helping people on Fort Lewis. And I asked him, I said, Danny, and this guy has such a great story. He got assigned to First Group as an E1 pack clerk in Okinawa. So he comes to group, goes to Japan. It's like, this is really cool. I like this. Makes it up to E4, gets sent to Fort Lewis after 3 years, and then says, you know what, pack clerk, no, I'm going to selection. Goes to selection, makes it. He's in First Group, so they put him on a scuba team. Goes to scuba school and makes it as an E4 because we were able to send him because he was in the unit. He wasn't an OJT guy. Then goes to Q course, makes it, goes back to the team and spends 10 years, 11 years on that ODA that he OJT'd on. Makes it all the way from E1 to the group CSM, 30 years, one group, never any other assignment. Okie, Lewis, that's all, 30 years, one group. And then, that's not enough because he's a Green Beret. He's a good American. He says, I'm going to retire. I'm going to take over this program that's a group CSM. I knew it was broke. It hurt my soul, or it hurt me whenever I'd see guys get out and not getting taken care of. The thing about retirement is you learn all the process and then you walk away, and the people that are coming after you don't see you anymore or don't understand it. We have if you know anybody that's retiring, we have a system that we help those people with. I asked him, Danny, is that money? What are you doing this for? He says, no, it pays my soul. I thought, wow, that's pretty powerful. So I like to always bring this up because I being a trained observer, been to 3 sniper schools. I'm always like, you're supposed to look at things, but you're supposed to see things. So this is the #1 example of subliminal advertising ever in the United States, more than almost any other, because until you see it, you don't see it, and then when you see it, you can never unsee it. But look at this arrow right here between the E and the X. Now you will never, if you didn't know that was there, you will never be able to not see it. You'll be driving somewhere, I guarantee in the next week you'll see a FedEx truck go by and you'll go, look at that little arrow. And you probably never even, it's a subliminal advertising. It's what encapsulates everything we're saying today. You got to look and see. You got to create those opportunities. You can't just sit and wait and sit in an echo chamber. You have the recruiting battalion commander here. Maybe some Green Beret could go with him, to one of their events, or, there could be some interconnectivity and mutual support, some synergy created through, retirements. And, I'm a 57-year-old mentor to a 22-year-old kid. We don't even speak the same language. We literally don't, but he now knows how to shack a grid. He knows how to, handrail a road. He knows a whole bunch of stuff now. It's not going to help him anywhere but the Q course. So you have to see. You can't just look. Like I said, you're never, if you didn't know that already, you're never going to forget it. But it's important to see, look for the answer. The answer's there. It's always there. Because Green Berets, they just look like us. You don't know what they look like. It looks like, if I saw him at the mall, I wouldn't go, he's a Green Beret. I'd go, man, he's a fashion model. Look at the guy. Square jaw, he walks like this. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't, my first thought would not be Green Beret, But I'm not a Green Beret because I went to the Q course. I went to the Q course because of who I am inside, and I'm a Green Beret. And I believe that. I'll leave you with this. You guys have probably seen it, right? The regiment is a mistress. Your wives will, what is it? Your wives will envy her because she will have your hearts. Your wives will be jealous of her because the power to pull you away. The mistress will show you things never before seen. The mistress will show you things never before felt. You know what? She will love you, but only a little. She'll seduce you to want more, to give more, to even die for her. She will take away from you that you love, and you will hate her for it. You will hate her for it. Leave her you never will, but if you must, you will miss her. For she is a part of you that will never be returned intact. But in the end, she'll leave you for a younger man. It's written by James R. Ward of the Office of Strategic Studies. What was that, in the 40s? OSS? Yep. The precursor to the CIA and our current regiment, right? The OSS. It's as true then as it is true today. The regiment is a mistress, and she'll leave you for a younger man. My wife and I, we started a 501c3 nonprofit with our home. We run it like a bed and breakfast. We do equine therapy for other veterans. We have them out in our place. Well, my wife does the equine therapy. If you go to our website, it'll say equine therapy and other activities. I'm other activities, just so you know. I got a shooting range, flat range, 50 meters out in the corner of my property, bunch of targetry. I'm like a 12-year-old kid out there. I got mini bikes and go-karts and all these other things to do. But if you guys are ever interested, or, you know, your service doesn't stop with your end of service. Servitude is a lifelong dream. So there's always avenues and ways that you can continue to serve the veteran community. My wife and I put a lot of time, energy, and effort. This is very successful, or it's being successful. It's all self-funded. We've taken no dollar from anyone, which is really starting to hurt all those horses. You guys know how expensive one horse is? Yeah. Oh, way worse than a kid. And they live as long as a kid. I've got 5 horses, a donkey, and a mule. The donkey is by far the most popular animal I have. Yeah. Oh, I don't know, little nugget of truth here. Mules have memories like elephants. Don't ever be mean to a mule. They will never forgive you. I kissed that mule's butt. Hey, how are you today? I dance for that guy. I don't want him mad at me. I appreciate you guys allowing me to come out here and just share this time with you. I hope it was beneficial. I'm going to be hanging around. It's not like I'm leaving or anything. But ultimately, it paid my soul to be around Green Berets because I live in the country. I don't get to talk to a lot of Green Berets. I drive hours to go down to the meeting. I travel great distances to be around other Green Berets because we are different. We're different. We're just different humans, and that's good. That's a good thing.